Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's bring today's meeting of the Transportation Committee to order. Pierre, could we have roll call?
Senator Anderson,
Here.
Senator Brennan,
Excused?
Senator Cooper,
Here.
Senator Kolb, Chairman Pappas.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd just like to take a moment to thank Senator Cooper and the rest of the committee for shepherding all the bills on Tuesday. I'm sorry I was gone. I was in Washington, D.C. And anyhow, thank you for keeping the committee rolling. So our first order of business today is House Bill 28. Could we have the department come up and give us some enlightenment on this bill?
Good morning, Chairman Pappas, members of the committee. My name is Misty Zimmerman. I'm the program manager for Wyoming Driver Services. As you may be aware, we worked this bill a lot through interim. It's part of our modernization project, as well as to align the Wyoming statutes for the commercial driver's license with some the federal regulations. It provides cleanup for the CDL and some enhancements. It updates the definition for serious traffic violation to better align with the definitions outlined in the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration regulations. It also creates some additional clarification on disqualification after fraudulent activity while obtaining a commercial driver's license. So with that, if there's not any questions, I'll go ahead and walk through the bill.
Please do. Thank you, Misty.
So on page 1, obviously, the bill summary talks about the disqualification that I mentioned earlier. It also adds a disqualification for commercial drivers that are under the age of 21 that receive a driving under the influence at a .02 or greater. And it also aligns our knowledge and skills testing with a federal program called Even Exchange, which would allow our certain military members to waive both the knowledge and the skills test. Going on to page 2 of the bill, in definitions under serious traffic violations on line 11, it adds the words improper to the erratic lane change that's already there. And then also throughout that page, it does add commercial learner's permit, which was originally not in the definition of serious traffic violation. It was CDL before, and now it adds commercial learner's permit. There's some LSO language changes regarding person on the remainder of that page. Going on to page 3, we talk about, again, commercial learner's permit on lines 1 and 6. Lines 10 through 14 on page 3 adds texting while operating a commercial motor vehicle to the list of serious traffic violations. And again, the statute already exists for this violation. It just simply adds that to the serious traffic violations. And again, on line 16 through 20, the same thing for the prohibition of using a handheld electronic communication device while operating a commercial motor vehicle. On the bottom of that page, 31.7.114 talks about the examinations, and this is on page 4. This is the section that adds the knowledge test to be waived in accordance with that Even Exchange program that the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has. Currently, right now, the statute only allows for us to waive the skills test. This allows us to waive both the knowledge and the skills test. On page 21, on line 21 of this page, again, LSO language to change individual to person. If the committee is okay, I'll skip page 5 or the changes on page 5, and I'll come back to them after I finish the explanation. So on line 6, on page 6, lines 1 through 7, this is the section that is added to give the department the authority to disqualify a youthful offender. So that's a person under the age of 21 who has a BAC of a .02 or greater while operating a non-commercial vehicle. And this section is added only for commercial driver's license or CLP holders at the time of the offense. So if you are an 18-year-old driver who doesn't have a CDL, this does not apply to you. If you have a CDL or a CLP at the time of the offense and you are convicted of a .02 or greater at that time, you would be then subject to the disqualification. That's in line with the federal regulation for driving under the influence. On, excuse me, on page 6, line 9, that's just updating the Romanet. And then I'll go back to page 4 here quickly. Excuse me, page 5. This section was added specifically that currently right now, if you're under the age of 21, that DUI gets expunged from your record. This statement on page 5, lines 6 through 9, says that the disqualification will not be expunged because it occurred while you held that CDL or CLP. So it would be taken into effect as you walk forward, or if you were to obtain another one, it would then count towards first and then subsequent second.
Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Getting back to page 5, lines 6 through 9, it says may be considered. You didn't say that. To be clear, it still may be considered.
Chairman Pappas, Senator Gold, that is correct. That's how the language is written. I think it's consistent with the remainder of the disqualification in 317305, that for a second or subsequent, it's shall, so this may be considered as the first.
But it doesn't have to be.
Okay. Thank you.
Continuing on then, on the last page, page 7, this portion is added specifically for individuals who are determined that they may have obtained their CDL through fraudulent means. The department has the ability to require that person to retest, and if the person fails to retest with the department, the previous language said that the department shall cancel the commercial driver's license and the driver must be required to reapply, but there's no time frame that was indicated in the original statute. And so this aligns with the FMCSA regulations that the person be disqualified for a period of 1 year. And then going forward, we just continue down this road. And I do believe that there was amendment on the House side that actually made this bill effective on January 1, 2026. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Senator Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this applies only to the under 21 drivers. Is that what I'm saying?
Chairman Pappas, Senator Cooper, the portion that we talked about on the driving under the influence at a .02 or greater is only for those drivers under the age of 21 and only those individuals that hold a commercial driver's license or commercial learner permit at the time of the offense.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The commercial learner permit, is that something relatively new, or that's not being added in this bill? Is that correct?
Chairman Pappas, Senator Cooper, no, the commercial learner permit has been in existence for quite some time. It was changed the name in 2015, but it's the license that you get or the permit that you get in order to train to drive to be a commercial driver's license holder. We're simply adding that language in here to be consistent that either a CDL holder or CLP holder would be held to the same standard. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question about interstate, intrastate, and interstate. I mean, we're making all these rules because of federal regulations, I'm hearing. Is there any latitude for any changes like we did with commercial driver's license holders for hazmat for under 21? Or is there something else driving this? I mean, we had a big discussion about that prior, why are we doing what we're doing? And it came to be that we could do something different. So I'm asking, is there any difference between somebody who's driving commercially just within the state of Wyoming is there any latitude that we could exercise beyond what you're recommending here? Or is there some other reason why we, I guess, can't do it? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Pappas, Senator Kolb, there are provisions in the federal regulations that allow states to make different rules for intrastate commerce travel or intrastate operations. Typically, those things are vision waivers, medical waivers, things like that. Where we do run into issues with getting into those, and specifically, I can't answer what they would be, like changes, how it would be affect, but sometimes we've talked that during the hazmat discussion, is that it has the potential to affect our motor carrier safety program grant money. We've run into that situation in several instances, and initially we had thought that with the hazmat. But without looking at each individual instance for intrastate variances separately, I couldn't answer that question, but there are the ability to do some of those things.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. But we have not lost any federal money, like when we changed the rule for hazmat CDL holders under 21. Have we lost any money, I guess, from the state grant, federal grants?
Chairman Pappas, Senator Kolb, it was determined by FMCSA that that was not against their current regulations, and so no, we did not for that purpose.
Okay. So Misty, I have a question on page 3, the two different violations in K and M. The one in M is a handheld device, the other one is an electronic wireless communication device. So if it's built into the vehicle, obviously it's not handheld in K. If it's built in and they use like voice texting, that's still illegal?
Chairman Pappas, the statute already exists in 315237, the use of handheld electronic wireless devices for electronic messaging prohibition. And specifically, it states in there that this section shall not apply when using voice-operated or hands-free technology.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I'm on page 4, the first two lines up there. It says the department may waive the knowledge test, skills test, or both specified in this section. Why would we waive those tests? And how do I do that?
Chairman Pappas, Senator Anderson. So currently, right now, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has two programs available for our military members. One is the skills test waiver, which allows persons with experience operating the same type of vehicle that they're wanting to operate on the federal CDL to waive that knowledge test, or excuse me, waive this skills test. The second one that Wyoming is working through adoption in this bill is that there's the ability for certain military operational services, MOSs, to waive both the knowledge and the skills tests. And those are identified in the federal regulation. And this just allows the state to participate in both the skills test waiver as well as the even exchange program.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So basically, we're just accepting the military
Military says.
training. Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 3, under K. Could you please explain that? Because now it's really scares me that we allow rulemaking. When I read something like this, I really would like to understand it better. Like what exactly, it says, the violation of state and local law relating to motor vehicle traffic control that prohibits using electronic wireless communication. So I guess, what does that refer, I mean, that prohibits, what thing are they prohibit? I mean, what is being done here? I don't understand, like, is it wouldn't you always prohibit it? I mean, that was kind of my question when I read that. So could you just explain it to me? Because this very well might come up later as a question. Thank you.
Chairman Pappas, Senator Kolb. This is language verbatim from the serious traffic violations that are outlined by FMCSA. And essentially what it's doing is just saying that if your state has a law that prohibits the action that's described here, then it is considered a serious traffic violation. And as we talked earlier, that 315237 is in fact the statute in Wyoming that would prohibit a driver from doing that.
Okay,
follow up. Why do we want to be so prescriptive like this? I mean, why do we need that in here? I mean, this can change, and you've spelled it out here. I mean, there's no other way of doing it than doing it this way, referring to a federal statute or federal law that we're quoting it. I mean, I just wonder why we need to quote an actual federal law within statute, because it seems very problematic most of the time that if we do and they change it, we have to go change statutes. So is this the best way of doing it? I realize it's new language, first off, right? It's not old language. So I just wonder, why is that the best course here? Or I guess you satisfied with, I guess, this way it's being wanted to be put in as a new statutory change? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Pappas, Senator Kolb. What we're doing in this section is simply defining the serious traffic violation. And I think this language leaves it very open, so that if another statute is created in the violation section, and that is might be different than the one that exists today, it also would be included in this definition of a serious traffic violation. So I don't think that we're trying to be prescriptive of what the violation is. We're just saying, if the driver commits the offense of driving in this scenario while using electronic wireless communications to write, send, or read, if there's a similar statute that is established later, it would also fall into this definition of a serious traffic violation and could be used towards the purposes of disqualification.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on that also. When you go through that electronic entry at the port, don't they text you a message or some communication somehow that says you're clear to go or something? And this would say they couldn't even read that text message. I don't know what the message is.
Chairman Pappas, Senator Anderson, I'm unsure of what the text message is as well. However, if it came through your communication system that was in your vehicle when using voice operated as it's outlined in the statute, that would not apply.
That equipment that they use for scanning and communicating with ports of entry, that's all built into their vehicles. It's not on a handheld.
But they receive some sort of a message
Yes,
from the port
they do.
somehow.
Yeah,
This says they couldn't even read it.
they'll get a message in the cab in their truck, whether they can bypass it or whether they have to come in.
Okay.
It's part of the pre-pass or whatever the system is called.
Yeah.
Okay, further questions for Ms. Zimmerman? Okay, we'll open it up to public comment. Do we have any public comment from the room? Seeing none, I think we do have Mr. Mark Aronowitz, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. If you will let him in, Pierre. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Wonderful. Thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Mark Aronowitz. I'm the chair of the Legislative Committee of the Wyoming Trial Lawyers Association and a practicing attorney. Neither for or against the bill, just have one main question and concern and wanted to provide a little background knowledge of things that we're hearing from our members. So the main focus for us, we think this is a pretty good bill, especially the additional serious traffic violations to recognize what's happening with technology and driver distractions. What I'm hearing from members is we have a lot of relatively new and inexperienced commercial drivers passing through Wyoming, not saying that they're from Wyoming. And I don't mean to denigrate anyone, working hard. A lot of these folks can't read English. So they are blowing through high wind warning signs, closure signs, light, high-profile vehicles. Even though we've got great electronic warnings on 25 and 80, they're not reading and recognizing them. Same thing on Teton Pass. There's no trailer rules for months. And you see jackknife tractor trailers on Teton Pass all the time. Our main concern is section 31.7.114 on page 4. I didn't even know this, but I guess the department already had the ability to waive the skills test. And now this may add the ability to waive the knowledge test. And I think Senator Anderson asked my question, why would we waive those tests? Wyoming is, or can be, an extreme driving environment. You know, if you're a driver from the South, you may not have ever experienced anything like what you can experience on I-25 or I-80 coming over Elk Mountain. And the conditions that you might face here, you know, with how driving, you know, even 20 miles an hour makes it so hard to stop if you're on an icy surface. So increased stopping times, driving too fast for conditions, of course, the distracted driving. Another thing that we hear from the field is that you have these trainer-trainee relationships where the trainer, you know, person in charge might take a driving shift from from California into Nevada or maybe even Western Utah. And then they relinquish the wheel and say, okay, next 10 hours are you. The trainer goes to sleep. And now the trainee has the I-80 stretch of Wyoming, which of course, you know, can turn on a dime. So we think Wyoming requires real knowledge, real skills for anyone driving a commercial vehicle through here. And we want to avoid those pileups that close the interstate for days and that put lives at risk. And the idea that whatever the federal regulations are, you know, from the United States Department of Transportation, that might not be sufficient for Wyoming conditions. So if there's a way to perhaps not waive the knowledge test or, you know, for the unique conditions that we have, that would be great, because we think any commercial driver should have the knowledge and skills necessary to safely navigate this state. And then I heard from the previous testimony that perhaps this 31.7.114G section only applies to certain members of the military. And that would definitely alleviate our concerns. I mean, if you can deal with, you know, huge military equipment, you're probably qualified and you have the knowledge and the skills. But subsection G doesn't say anything like that. It just says a commercial driver license applicant. So a little clarity there, but those are our main concerns, and very much appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Arowitz. I believe that the department can probably clarify a little bit. I'm not so certain, and maybe Misty, you could tell us whether our exam actually is Wyoming specific on road conditions and all of that. Please, could you answer his questions and mine?
Chairman Pappas, Mr. Aronovich, you are correct in the statement that this would only apply to certain military occupational services. This is trading a military CDL that was obtained through their processes, which are in line with the federal standards as well. Most branches of the military do use the same federal testing guidelines that every jurisdiction, every state uses. And this actually it's specifically outlined in our rule on who can have what occupational services can actually have that knowledge test waived. And also, one thing to be very clear about is this is for only Wyoming licensed drivers. So this only gives us the ability to waive the knowledge test for someone who is licensed in this state, knowledge or skills test. If you obtain your driver's license in another jurisdiction, they may not participate in this. So we're just ensuring that they meet the requirements of the Military Even Exchange Program, which is the 8 MOSs that were identified, or if it's in the case of the skills test waiver, they meet all of the qualifications that are outlined in our requirements. We actually were able to take this opportunity to tighten up both processes as we walk through this. to ensure that there's no fraud in the process, and also to ensure that we are in fact getting information directly from the commanding officer and ensuring that all of our information is in place before we waive these. So we're taking this very seriously.
And would it be, would it be true that most of the drivers on our Wyoming roads, certainly our interstates, probably are not Wyoming licensed? I mean, it seems to me that they would be from some other jurisdiction than Wyoming, and very few would actually, if you look at the percentage, would actually be Wyoming issued licenses.
Yeah, Chairman Pappas, when you look at the amount of travelers on I-80, I-25 on our roads, it's extensive. Wyoming only has 33,000 CDL holders. So I think when you look at that number, you are probably most likely correct.
Okay, and to my question about our exam, our knowledge test, does it deal with specific Wyoming conditions?
Chairman Pappas, we do have information on hazardous driving. It doesn't, the knowledge test itself does not, it's federally mandated. So we're required to have a certain test pool questions, pick so many questions from each of the test pools, and then combine that into the 50-question test that's required. We do, in our CDL driving manual, have specific information about operating in hazardous conditions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Aronowitz, would you have any questions for the department?
No, Mr. Chairman, I would just say thank you for the explanation and the opportunity to learn a little bit more. And I guess if there was one question, is there a way to insert, maybe one sentence into 31.7.114 to show precisely who this applies to? But that's it.
Okay, well, thank you. Committee, any questions for our online guest? No, not online. Okay, well, thank you for your testimony. We appreciate you coming in and giving us your thoughts.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I think that's all online, right? So with that, I think I'll close public testimony.
I did have a question.
Oh, you have a question? Sure, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this kind of came up with the online testimony about the issue about people not speaking English, a basic skill level of understanding English. Do you know, and it's probably an unfair question to ask you because you're not highway patrol, but do you know of if we cite commercial CDL holders for lack of ability to understand English because of said like crashes, rollovers, or whatever after the trooper investigates and looks into it, have we cited people for the inability to understand English? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Zimmerman?
Chairman Pappas, Senator Kolb, I don't know if there's been a citation. The ability exists per federal regulation. So if they determine that a person cannot speak or read English to the point in which that they can communicate, they do have the ability, but I can't tell you if there's been that citation at this point.
And they're required.
And they are.
They are required to be able to learn, to read and speak English.
Chairman
Or else-
Pappas, that is correct.
Right, okay. Thank you. Okay, now I'll close public testimony. Committee, what's your pleasure on the bill?
Move it, Bill.
Been moved by Senator Anderson, seconded by Senator Cooper. Okay, I'll just open it up for any, I don't think I'll go page by page. I think we've done that. Let's just open it up for any modifications you might want to see. Anything? Or any discussion?
Discussion.
Oh, go ahead.
Senator Cole, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, as I'm sitting here for more years, it's pretty evident to me that this rulemaking authority scares me to no end. I mean, I can see the way this language is crafted. It's for rulemaking authority and allowing latitude about, say it be a military ask for a license, that's within here, but it's not spelled out. And then some of the language that we choose to use in here, it just doesn't seem very clear to me. And I understand the reason for the bill, and it has good reasons, but I am very concerned about rulemaking authority and the lack of specificity within here that really gives us clear insight to what the rulemaking authority would do. That's my concern with these kind of bills. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, on page 4, that knowledge test and skills test, I'm okay with them being able to waive that for military or for whatever reason they find. So I'm all right with leaving it kind of broad.
Okay. Any further comments, discussion? Any proposed amendments? Okay, well, let's take a roll call.
Senator Anderson,
Aye.
Senator Brennan,
Aye.
Senator Cooper,
Aye.
Senator Kolb,
No?
Chairman Pappas.
Aye.
4 ayes, 1 no, do pass.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to carry this? Anybody care to tackle this on the floor? No? Well, then I'll do it.
Well, since you've been gone.
Since I've been gone, yeah.
Yeah.
Senator Cooper had such a hard time. I mean, we had a difficult road to hoe for some weird reason. I'm gonna blame it on the otters.
Okay, so,
I think it was the audit.
I did have one question. Now, I mean, we've already passed the bill. Misty, could you tell me, you mentioned that the House changed the date, but that's not in an engrossed bill. So they did not change the date. There is an engrossed version? So they didn't change anything over there. I just wanted you to be aware of that. So it's still July 1st. That an issue?
Chairman Pappas, it's not. I was confused with the other bill.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, so let's go to the other bill. House Bill 30, driver's license and ID revision. Please walk us through the bill.
Again, Misty Zimmerman, Driver Services Program Manager. Again, this bill was mostly of a derivative of our modernization project. As we walk through a lot of the processes that we have in place, we've realized that there's some need for change. So what this bill does in overview is it extends the expiration date or renewal requirement of a license for a person that's issued below the age of 21 to the 5 years that's prescribed by statute, rather than having it expire on the person's 21st birthday. It also clarifies the timeline for the contested case hearing and amends the requirement for a replacement license and creates the prescribed fee. So with that, if there's not any questions, I'll just walk through the bill.
Please do.
As we walk through the original introduction, I think I went over that. On page 2, lines 17 and 18, we remove the words of, the request and change that to the receipt of the certified record by the department. What that does is that clarifies when that clock starts for the Office of Administrative Hearings to set that hearing date for individuals who have requested a hearing under this statute. As we walk through the next page on page 3, lines 18 and 19, that sets the fee for the replacement license, which the committee chose to set that at $20. Beginning with the issuance and description on lines 21 and move into page 4, lines 3 through 11. What that does is that removes the requirement for a person's license that's issued after the graduated license process has been completed, and extends that period of that license to 5 years. Currently, right now, that's set to expire on the person's 21st birthday, and we've just asked the committee, or we asked the committee during interim to move that to the standard 5 years that's required by law. In 317118, this section really clarifies what is defined as a replacement license, as well as on page 5, lines 1 through 19, talks about the requirements for a person to obtain a replacement license. During our modernization project, we've now developed an online portal that will allow Wyoming citizens, if they lose their license, if they want to change their address, if they want to change a donor designation or a medical alert, to get a replacement license for a reduced fee rather than paying the $35 renewal fee. So what that does is that clarifies the requirements of that, and it also sets the fee for that. On page 5, it starts with 31.8.102, which is the contents of the identification card. And what that does is that just on page 6, lines 6 through 9, identifies some outdated verbiage that was being used and simply says that the back of the ID card will say for identification purposes only. So this bill specifically repealed a few things. On page 6, lines 11 and 12, 31.7.113A, it gets rid of duplicate renewal and creates the replacement license fee that was outlined in the bill. And then it also says in 31.7, it repeals 31.7.119E that states the statute requiring a driver's license for a person under the age of 21 to expire on their 21st birthday. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 6, line 5 to 9, the personal identification card is, we had other bills that specified a personal identification card, as I recall. If this is the same card that we talked about, using IDing a person as resident, non-resident. Is that a personal identification card, or is this another classification of card beyond that one? My concern is if it is the same thing we're talking about, that if we have two bills that are running together and the first one that gets signed into law, that the second one supersedes the first one. So I'm concerned. I guess the question, I suppose, is, does this relate to what we talked about prior for personal identification cards in the state of Wyoming? That would be, I guess, my first question.
Chairman Pappas, Senator Cole, it does include, the bill you're speaking of does also include the identification cards that are issued by the department. That would be in conjunction or in addition to what I'm asking for here. So if the other bill, I think it's Senate Bill 33, were to pass, that would be something that would be in addition to what I'm asking for here.
Senator Cole.
Maybe. I am concerned, though, if we run multiple bills in the same year, the rule is the last bill signed into law supersedes all others. And are you sure then that we wouldn't have a problem with that? I mean, that's my concern. That's why I'm asking the question. I guess if your professional opinion is no, then that's what it is. So, thank you.
Chairman Pappas, Senator Cole, unsure of the exact rule of how things are signed into law and what would be effective. I would take that to be that we would add this, and then if the other bill were to be passed, we would also have to add that. But that's a decision for you guys to make.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I thought that other bill was just on the driver's license that we put not US, but it didn't affect the identification card. But I don't know which one he's referring to.
Senator Cole.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you for the question. It did both. There was one for an identification card, you're right. There's one for the driver's license, and that was a big topic. The other one was an identification card that wasn't a driver's license.
Oh, okay.
And that's the reason for my concern is
Yeah.
I know the law, and the law is the last bill gets signed into law to the same, if they refer to the same thing, that the last bill becomes law. It supersedes the first one, so it's very important on some time. This doesn't happen very much. That's what I'm concerned about. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for answering the question.
I have a question on page 5, Mr. Chairman. It says, except for commercial driver's license with a hazmat endorsement. So what's the rule for the hazmat endorsement?
Chairman Pappas, Senator Anderson, our law requires that if you're renewing or replacing a hazardous material, a commercial driver's license with a hazardous material on it, that you have to have completed the knowledge test associated with that endorsement within the previous 2 years. And so the check and balance could not be there if they did that online. If they were in the office, it would be allowable.
Thank you.
Okay. So just to clarify back on Senator Kolb's point on the identification card, they're not a second identification card, it's the same card. Is that correct? It would be the same card.
Chairman Pappas, you're correct.
Person wouldn't carry 2 cards.
We only allow an individual to have one
card.
credential. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further questions?
I had another question.
Sure, Senator Anderson.
We're putting in $20 for the replacement license. Did we have a charge for that before?
Chairman Pappas, Senator Anderson, there was a replacement license fee that was originally indicated in the bill, and it is repealed in this section because it was the same charge as the renewal. And so individuals chose, rather than getting a replacement license that had the same expiration date as the previous one, to just go ahead and renew for that next 5 years. And so that was the intent of creating this new fee, was to create a fee that was less than the renewal price. So an individual, without meeting all of the examinations required, could get a replacement license to, like I said earlier, update your certain demographic information, those types of things, at a lesser rate.
Because right now you have to pay the entire fee, but you do get extended for the full 5 years. Okay, any further questions? Okay, do we have any, we did take public comment on this one, do we? We haven't yet. Public comment, anybody care to speak on this? I don't believe we have anyone online either. Okay, we'll close public comment. Committee, what's your pleasure?
Move bill. Second.
Moved by Senator Brennan, seconded by Senator Anderson. Committee, discussion. Okay. Any, discussion? Oh, do you have a discussion?
I'm sorry, I thought you said me, Chairman. Yeah, discussion on the page 6 about the identification card. It might be prudent that we amend this out, check with the LSO to see if there is gonna be a problem, that if it's gonna negate the other bill. Because this, I don't see that it doesn't have a huge need here. It's just an update on some language. So I don't, it doesn't seem like it's a terrible thing not to deal with it. I would not want to have us run into a problem, or we could do it on the floor, Mr. Chairman. It probably depends on what you want to do this. That's my only concern with this bill, is that section there that we could, depending on the timing.
Personally, I don't see how it negates anything. Yeah, certainly, I prefer not to take it out right now, because that's how we worked it in the interim. I would encourage you, though, to speak to LSO.
I'll speak to LSO, Mr. Chairman,
And
if there is nothing.
if there is a issue, I wouldn't, and they see an issue, I
They'll
certainly,
investigate, Mr.
I
Chairman.
certainly would,
I'll ask the question. If there's nothing there, then there's nothing there.
okay, sounds good. Okay, any other further questions? Amendments? Okay, let's take roll call.
Senator Anderson,
Aye.
Senator Brennan,
Aye.
Senator Cooper,
Aye.
Senator Kolb,
Aye.
Chairman Pappas.
Aye.
5 ayes do pass.
Okay, thank you, committee. Who'd care to run this one? Okay, somebody stick their hands. Okay, Senator Brennan. All righty, well, that clears our work for today. And I don't know what bills we'll have coming down the pike, but so far we haven't been issued any further bills. There's none in my drawer, so we'll see if we get any more House bills coming from the president today. Okay, thank you, committee. Meeting adjourned.
Senator Nethercott was talking about possibly agree with